In this Tokyo neighborhood, you can visit one of the city's parks with the most recent history, one of Japan's most famous temples, all while surrounded by a densely urbanized environment. Here you'll find the city's nerdiest street and a commercial area filled with luxury shops, technology, and beautiful viewpoints where you can relax and watch planes fly by. In just a few blocks, you'll find everything. So let's talk about Harajuku. With Dream Takeoff, we've arrived in Tokyo. Since this city is a world of its own, we'll start exploring it neighborhood by neighborhood. And today, it's Harajuku's turn. The best way to get here is via its namesake train station, the Harajuku Station, which is part of the famous Yamanote Line. Our first stop will be one of the city's main green spaces, the renowned Yoyogi Park, located right behind the station. It's worth noting that Harajuku isn't a city district itself, but rather part of the even more famous Shibuya district. However, it's a recognized area for both locals and tourists, with its own unique attractions that are easily walkable. These include Yoyogi Park, which we've already mentioned, the Meiji Jingu Shrine, the vibrant Takeshita Dori Street, and part of the Omotesando shopping street. You can easily spend half a day visiting these four main attractions in Harajuku, and we're going to show them to you today. Yoyogi Park and Meiji Jingu Shrine. The first of these, Yoyogi Park, is that green space you see in the background. At 54 hectares, it's one of the largest parks in the city center. Only 4 hectares smaller than Shinjuku Gyoen, and 1 hectare larger than Ueno Park. However, it's surpassed by megaparks on the outskirts of Tokyo, such as Kansai Rinkai, 80 hectares, and Showa Kinen, 165 hectares. Before we continue, I need to clarify something. What is more properly known as Yoyogi Park is the area on the left, with large recreational lawns where dogs are not allowed off-leash. That said, there are fenced-in areas where dogs can run free, sniff, and socialize. But since the Japanese are very orderly, they don't all go in together. There are 3 separate areas for dogs of different sizes. On the right, you'll find a forest that is part of the Meiji Jingu Shrine. The entrance is marked by this enormous torii gate. Getting a photo here is a miracle because of the sheer number of people trying to do the same. The first time I came to Tokyo, I loved this path to the shrine because it takes you away from the city and into a forested area. On my first trip, it was filled with silence and the sounds of nature. This time, I can't say the same, as a very loud tourist family literally followed me the whole way. The dense vegetation might make you think you're in an ancient forest, but in reality, until the beginning of the last century, this area was just rice paddies and rural shrines. In 1909, it became a military training ground and parade space. In 1910, it made history as the birthplace of Japanese aviation, where Yoshitoshi Tokugawa flew Japan's first motorized airplane. Between 1915 and 1920, this specific area was transformed into the Meiji Jingu Sacred Forest, leading to the shrine and separating it from the rest of the park. At that time, there was no forest, so 110,000 volunteers, under the direction of forester Siroku Honda, planted 100,000 trees of 365 different species. These were donated from nurseries and shrines across all 47 prefectures of Japan, as well as territories that were Japanese colonies at the time, such as Taiwan, Korea, and the Russian island of Sakhalin. The rest of the space was an army drill field until Japan's defeat in World War II, at which point it became part of the American occupation zone and was turned into a walled-off suburb called Washington Heights. Let's pause the history for a moment to show you the stream this stone bridge crosses. If you immerse yourself in this picture, It feels like you're in a deep forest, not in the heart of one of the world's most densely populated cities. This kind of experience is what I love about parks in Japan. What do you think? As I was saying, the American suburb of Washington Heights was built on what is now Yoyogi Park. With 827 prefabricated houses, schools, and even a movie theater for 3,000 soldiers and their families, without touching the sacred forest. It wasn't until the 1964 Olympics that Japan negotiated the partial return of Washington Heights, planning the Olympic Village and a future park here. That year, the American families moved to Tachikawa, and Japan regained control of the entire area. Most of the Washington Heights houses were torn down, and Phase 1 of Yoyogi Park, covering only 27 hectares, was inaugurated. Phase 2, where 10,000 more trees, including ginkgos and cherry blossoms, were planted, was inaugurated in 1971. Allowing the park to reach its current size. There are a few attractions along this path. To the left, for example, is the entrance to the Meiji Jingu Shrine, Meiji Shrine Inner Garden, which features an iris garden, a pond, a tea house, and paths with maples and cedars that turn red in November. The visit is not free. It costs about 500 yen to help maintain the space, which is less than $4. I don't find it expensive, but my most valuable resource is time, and I'd rather go to other places today. But if you want to visit it, you know where it is. I'll keep going. If you like this video so far, please support us by liking and subscribing so you don't miss our next destinations. And we continue. Here we'll start to see a white wall made up of 216 consecrated sake barrels, which are offered by the Producers Association from all 47 prefectures of Japan for the Meiji Shrine ceremonies. Each barrel has the kanji of the producer who donated it, and the entire display is renewed annually for the Grand Autumn Festival to ensure it always looks vibrant. Sake barrels are part of a tradition dating back to 1920, where producers donated sake to the kami, sacred entities, of the shrine. But the current wall was built in 1960 as part of post-war reconstruction. Opposite it are 60 oak barrels, a coordinated donation from the Bureau Interprofessionnel des Vins de Bourgogne in France as a gesture of Franco-Japanese friendship. These are only replaced if damaged and have been repainted twice. The wall of French wine barrels, dating back to 2006, was built to match the height of the opposite wall. Despite the smaller capacity of the sake barrels, which is 72 liters, the French barrels hold 228 liters. But speaking of liters, there's not a drop of liquor here. When I first saw the barrels, I wondered if the wine, in particular, would still be in good condition, considering that wine cellars are usually underground to preserve quality, and these barrels are in full sun. But the truth is that both the sake and wine barrels are empty. The liquor is indeed donated annually and used in religious rites, but it's stored elsewhere for ceremonial purposes. Remember, we are in a shrine, and the French containers are made of Burgundian oak, and the Japanese ones are made of Yoshino cedar, because their aromas were considered suitable for perfuming this sacred path. Speaking of its sacred nature, we are now passing through the O-Torii, or Great Torii Gate, which at 12 meters high is one of the largest in Japan. It was erected in 1920, destroyed by a lightning strike in 1966, and rebuilt in 1975. It is 1 meter taller than the first one we saw at the entrance and marks the transition from the profane world to the sacred grounds. A fun fact is that the wood for this new torii came from 1,500-year-old hinoki cypress logs from Alishan in Taiwan, and it's only embedded in the ground so that it can sway freely in the event of an earthquake. If we keep walking and then turn right, we'll arrive at the Meiji Jingu Shrine. But why is it called that? In Japan, each emperor ushers in a new era in the country's history. The Meiji era corresponds to the reign of the emperor who, before his ascension, was named Mutsuhito, and who ruled from 1868 to 1912. Meiji can be translated as enlightened rule, and it's a critical period in Japanese history because the country transitioned from a feudal shogunate to a constitutional monarchy where power returned from the shogun to the emperor. This era was also marked by rapid modernization, with Japan adopting railways, the telegraph, compulsory education, and industrialization. This period was also characterized by the introduction of Western ideas under the motto Japanese Spirit, Western Knowledge. And, relevant to our visit, it was during this era that the emperor introduced Western wine to the Japanese court, which is why the French donated wine to this shrine. The temple was built in 1920 to honor this vital emperor. But should we call him Emperor Meiji or Mutsuhito? Well, as soon as a new emperor ascends the throne in Japan, the court chooses a name for his era, not for him personally. In this case, the Meiji era, and the emperor was simply called His Majesty the Emperor, or Tennoheika. This was more than sufficient considering no one else shared the title, and they weren't just shouting his name in the hallways. His birth name was considered taboo. However, upon their death, emperors are posthumously given the name of their era, which is why we now speak of Emperor Meiji or Meiji Tenno. And Mutsuhito, that name is only used to refer to his life before his coronation, or when discussing the imperial genealogy. Despite this, many Western texts referred to him as Emperor Mutsuhito for a long time because they were unfamiliar with Japanese culture. Emperor Meiji died in 1912, and his wife, Empress Shokin, who also had a different birth name, died 2 years later. So the Diet, or Japanese Parliament, decided to build this shrine to honor the imperial couple who led the country's modernization. And of course, they had reason to be grateful. The imperial diet itself, or Teikoku Gikai, as a legislative body, emerged in 1889 thanks to Japan's first constitution, the Meiji Constitution, which was promoted by this emperor with the advice of Ito Hirobumi, who served as prime minister of the country 4 times. Another interesting fact is that the location of the shrine, the former Yoyogi Goyochi, was specifically chosen for its importance in Japanese aviation history. This way, the site would unify modernity and tradition, precisely what the emperor represented for his country. Finally, we arrive at the shrine, where we are welcomed by a new torii gate, much less impressive than the previous 2. To its left, we find the Temazuya, or water pavilion. This is the ablution pavilion where worshippers used to purify themselves by using a long-handled ladle called a hishaku to wash their left hand, then their right, and finally rinse their mouth. These ladles were removed in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the risk of contagion they posed. They were replaced by a continuous stream of water, allowing people to purify themselves without touching anything. This system is still in place here, although the ladles are slowly returning as restrictions are eased. They are such a part of the tradition that during the pandemic, many people 3D printed their own ladles to be able to visit the shrines. That's Japan for you. Meanwhile, in other countries, people were wearing masks on their chins. If you see a hut like this, pay attention to the signs. They are not trash cans. They are for respectfully depositing good luck charms, omamori, or sacred talismans, ofuda, which are later burned in sacred rituals, usually on New Year's Day, so the blessings can return to the kami or deity. It's customary to return a charm to its original shrine, but if you can't, you can return it to another. Please check if it is Shinto or Buddhist, and if so, return it to a temple of the same faith. I gave a couple of charms to my friends and told them they had to come back to Japan to return them because they expire. They were thrilled with the challenge, even though they have to pay for their own flights. After passing through the small entrance Tori, we find the Minami Shinman, or Southern Sacred Gate, which separates the outer public courtyard from the main shrine. A fun fact is that it's one of the few temple buildings not destroyed in the 1945 bombings, which necessitated the reconstruction of most of the precinct between 1950 and 1958, with donations from all over the country. The shrine complex was conceived as an imperial forest shrine, designed to blend with the surrounding woods. It was designed by Ito Chuta, a prominent Japanese architect, who chose the Nagare-zukuri flowing roof style, trying to evoke more archaic Shinto architecture and integrate it with the imperial scale. The entire building was constructed from hinoki cypress, assembled without nails to be more earthquake-resistant and to evoke a sense of purity. Specifically, a system of tapered pegs was used, which swell with humidity and tighten the joints. If you've been to other shrines like Nikko Toshogu in Nikko or Fushimi Inari in Kyoto, you might miss the color red. But here, the use of wood was intentional to reflect the Meiji ideal of simplicity and modernity. This is the Meoto Kusu. Although it looks like a single tree, it's actually two camphor trees that represent marital unity. They are joined by this 40-kilogram twisted rice straw rope called a shimenawa, which indicates a sacred connection. As you might expect, they represent Emperor Meiji and Empress Shokin. Their bond isn't just spiritual, it's biological, as both trees feed together by sharing a fungal mycelium that nourishes them symbiotically. Right in front of the Minami Shinmon, we see the main shrine, the heart of the complex, where the Shintai or sacred objects of Emperor Meiji and Empress Shokin are located. We'll view this oratory from a distance, as filming inside is prohibited. Each worshipper arrives at the entrance, at the oratory or Haiden, makes an initial bow, leaves a monetary donation, bows twice and claps twice before expressing gratitude or making a request with their hands held together. That's as far as they go. They cannot pass the sacred fence, or tamagaki, beyond which is the main pavilion, or honden, where the sacred spirit resides. Unlike the Minami Shinmon, this building was destroyed by the bombings of World War II in 1945 and rebuilt between 1950 and 1958. This tree on the other side of the main shrine is surrounded by the emakake, which means Emma rack. This is where people write their wishes on these votive tablets and hang them up. It's important to write the wish on the white side and hang it with the painted side facing the honden so that the wish travels to the kami. These emas are periodically burned in a ritual ceremony to purify the wishes, and the ashes are mixed with the forest soil. This shrine has different levels of sacredness. Entering through the Minami Shinmon, you have the gravel courtyard where we are now with the trees. The Haiden, which is the oratory open to the community. The Haiden, which is the offering hall. And finally, the Honden, the inner chamber where only priests and guests can enter. If you like this video so far, please support us by liking and subscribing so you don't miss our next destinations. And we continue. To the right, we can see this space called Juyosho, or the main amulet hall. It's the main one because there's a smaller one at the north entrance. This is where the shrine manages the tangible links between visitors and the kami. You can buy various items here, such as omamori, protection amulets, ofuda, talismans for the home, iema, wish tablets, and more. You can also request special prayers and family ceremonies. And you can also drop off your expired amulets here, just like in the box at the main entrance. Always with respect. In addition to amulets, another thing you can collect at this shrine is a goshuin. The goshuin is a set of black Japanese calligraphy and red rubber stamps. The black calligraphy is the human voice that testifies to the visit, and the red stamps are the voice of the kami. In this temple, they do it by hand. It requires an offering of 500 yen, which is less than $4. If you want to get the shrine's goshuin, you need to go behind the Juyosho following this path. Collecting goshuin is a real addiction, just like collecting stamps at different stations in Japan. But since goshuin are not just simple stamps but blessings, you can't collect them on any paper or notebook. You need a special book called a goshuincho, which has thicker pages and is bound like an accordion. I bought my goshuincho for this trip here, but I regretted it because it wasn't very pretty. At the Sensoji Temple in Asakusa, you can buy more varied and impressive goshuincho, though they are also more expensive. Once you have it, you'll go back out to the courtyard, and in front of the Juyosho, you'll find this building called the Kaguraden, which serves as a stage for kagura and bugaku dances, musical prayers, and private ceremonies. And with that, we conclude our visit. We'll head back to the gravel courtyard, and then walk the path back to the first torii gate that welcomed us to the park, returning to the urban area that reminds us we are in the middle of one of the most complex cities on the planet. We'll now go to see 2 other Harajuku attractions, but not before taking one last look at this impressive entrance. Right across the street from Harajuku Station, where we began our visit, is one of the city's most famous streets, Takeshita Dori. At its ends, you'll find these typical portals that change with the seasons. It's a bustling 350-meter-long street with a vibrant commercial life, full of alternative fashion, exotic food, and eye-catching products. You might not guess that it was named in honor of a Japanese admiral, Takeshita Isamu. Be prepared to be patient when you visit, as there are a lot of people in a tiny space. So if you're not a fan of crowds, maybe coming to Japan isn't the best idea. But for me, enduring the crowds, which you become a part of, is totally worth it. In the 1990s and 2000s, This place was a showcase for many striking styles like Lolita, Decora, Fairy K, and Visual K. Now, it's still a place where many brands test small runs of styles. If a product sells out, it is mass-produced in larger stores, which in turn influences fashion in other Asian capitals like Seoul, Bangkok, and Taipei. Years have passed, but Takeshita Dori remains influential. So if you're into fashion, you can come take a look. If you have geeky tastes, you can also find some shops you'll love, like this capsule toy store or gashapon shop. Here, you can choose from hundreds of machines with different kinds of products. I thought the word gashapon might come from the English gotcha or got you, but it seems that for the Japanese, the crank of the machines makes a gasha, gasha, gasha sound. And when the capsule falls, it makes a pon sound. Hence the onomatopoeia, gashapon. Because the street has little space but a lot of people, everything can become a store, even the basement. One cool thing is that on this street and throughout the neighborhood, you can see planes passing overhead. But only between 3 o'clock real p.m. and 7 hours p.m., when planes heading to Haneda Airport are allowed to fly over this area. Strange food, like this rainbow-colored treat, is also found on this street. Or these whole potatoes that have been fried in a spiral shape, called tornado potatoes. You can find them at the longest store. The largest potato is 52 centimeters long, making it perfect for a souvenir photo. But it's also challenging to eat. If you want more unusual stores, you can find this pig cafe, where you can spend time petting little pigs, some of which are quite affectionate and even stalkerish. It's along the same lines as other cafes in Japan with cats, dogs, owls, and other animals. If you like buying eye-catching things, you can find the Wiggle Wiggle store here. This Korean brand's Harajuku location is the largest in Japan and has many fun, playful daily use items for the more adventurous. Now, where you see this portal, we're reaching the other end of Takeshita Dori and can enter the rest of the Harajuku neighborhood. What we'll do now is turn right to head to the last point of interest, Omotesando Street. Right at this intersection, which is a 5-minute walk from either Yoyogi Park or Takeshita Dori, we can find a shopping mall called Tokiu Plaza Omotesando Omokado. Founded in 2012, it's famous for 2 things. First, its entrance is full of mirrors that you ascend via escalators, and it has become a very Instagrammable spot to show that you visited this part of Tokyo. While there are several shops inside to distract you, the second point I love is on its rooftop terrace. On the 6th floor, there's a green terrace called the Omohara Forest, which you can access for free. There's a Starbucks right on this floor if you want to grab something, but you can also sit on the steps that double as seats and enjoy the garden, which serves as a true urban oasis. If that's not enough for you, this forest leads to a viewpoint of the neighborhood that is well worth a few minutes of your time. The first time I came here, there was an ordinary building on the opposite corner. But in 2024, the Tokiu Plaza Harajuku Harakado opened. This sister building to the one we're visiting now has a better viewpoint. But in my opinion, the finishing touches are of lower quality than the original. Maybe it's just a different style. So let's go check it out. I think the new mall tried to exaggerate the original's mirrored portal idea and put this style on its entire facade. But sometimes less is more, and I feel it lacks the immersive effect of the first building. And although it has a Dior store on the ground floor, it's not a luxury shopping building. It includes florists and even eateries, aiming to be more of a community hub. Just like its sibling, its most interesting part is its own green terrace. This one has multiple levels that give a greater sense of openness, allowing you to look at the neighborhood, the traditional Tokiu Plaza Omotesando Omokado. Watch planes fly by, and even see parts of Tokyo Tower and Roppongi Hills in the distance. The stepped park design of this viewpoint surpasses the original building, allowing you to sit for a long time, a necessity for every visitor to Tokyo. And unlike the other viewpoint, here you can sit on any step and have an excellent view. I'd love to stay and just watch, but unfortunately our day isn't over yet. I hope you've enjoyed Harajuku and found some interesting facts for those of you who will visit for the first time. For those who have already been, I hope you've learned some new things that will help you enjoy your memories of the visit even more. I had a great time making this video and learning new things, but it's time to go. We will now walk about 20 minutes to get to another even more famous area of Tokyo, Shibuya. So, see you there. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next destination here on Dreamed Takeoff.